So I think through all the noise that my helper probably didn't think it was bad either. But anyway, I started thinking about the song, and I don't know why it popped in my head. Just when a random light bulb goes off, I guess. And I started thinking about that. And I get home, and then I got writer's block. And then all of a sudden I had it off. So I was thinking about all the lyrics, you know, what they're saying, how prepared they were going into the battle. And then at the end, you know, we got God on our side, so they just laid everything down. And so I looked up Ephesians, the armor of God, put on the full armor of God. If somebody wouldn't mind reading Ephesians 6:10 through 20, that'd be great.
Ephesians 6, what?
Ephesians 6:10 through 20.
Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, with which you will be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked one. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, being watchful to this end with all perseverance and supplication for all of the saints. And for me, that utterance may be given to me, that I may open my mouth boldly to make known the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains, that in it I may speak boldly as I ought to speak.
Thank you. So I was reading that, and getting this lesson ready, and I thought about all the different armor that we were given, and you know, each piece fits a specific way, and like the gird your loins with the truth. You know, you ever been working and you forgot your belt? Your pants are just a little too big, and as you bend down, your pants fall on the ladder and try to pull them up and do work. You know, where you should shod your feet with preparation of the gospel of peace. I've had a pair of work boots that I split the side of them, and all day you're trying to figure out how to put them in. Duct tape does good until you're walking on it, and it wears out every couple of minutes. But all the armor that we were given, you know, it fits together. You know, the helmet's not going to do you any good if arrows are shooting at you. I guess it'll protect your head, but it ain't going to protect anything else. If you ever tried to run with flip-flops or shoes that are too big, you're probably going to fall. Then we have the sword of the Spirit, the Word of God. It's sword's a double-edged. You know, it cuts, it discerns, it bends you. It's also offensively. So all these things are for us, but if you don't use them, they're worthless. And then the last one that I don't know how many times I've read that or heard it that I've never really picked up on was the last one we had is prayer. To continually pray. And that'll protect us. Like I said, you know, you got to keep your weapons polished up. I was borrowing my helper's channel locks yesterday, and I guess he leaves them in a bucket of water because, you know, they're so tight. I was prying them apart, and I couldn't get a hold of nothing. I said, just go get mine. And, you know, our Christian weapons, our tools are the same way. You're not using them, They're not gonna do you much good when you do need them, because they're so wore out and messed up. You don't wanna leave them in a corner gathering rust. Any thoughts at this point?
The only thing I can think about, all of these things are weapons of offense. It's the Spirit of God, the Word of God is the offense. The others are to protect us. And then there's nothing to protect our back. We can't turn and run. We're supposed to keep facing the enemy.
Yes.
Also, if we don't keep studying, we're talking about when it get rusty. The word can get rusty to us if we don't stay in it and study it every day. And we won't be prepared when we go out to talk to someone else or to see what.
You know, we're not, like it says, we're not fighting flesh and blood either. It's a whole different thing than what we're used to as humans, so we've got to be sure and be on our toes at all times, because, you know, the evil one's gonna come after us when we're least expecting it. He's gonna find our cheeks, like our back, you know, it's not protected or wherever, so we'll be sure to be ready.
Well, you've never had fun until you talk to teenage boys in class. They can ask you some doozy questions, and sometimes you're not fully prepared for what they ask. But I was asking them, talk about like darts and flaming arrows and stuff like that the other night. And at first they were talking about, goofy stuff like a car or, TV or something like that. And then we finally got into, sex, drugs, alcohol, stuff they were going to deal with in school and, as they get older. I lost my train of thought for a second. They finally started, you could see the light bulbs start going off that, it's usually, never a simple or just jump out and get you. It's always something gradual. That's why they call certain stuff gateway drugs and, different things. It's always gradually. It's not like a bomb goes off and, you're in it. And like I said, you can see the kind of light bulbs start going off in their, heads. And,
Mark, when it's verse 17 says, take the helmet of salvation and sword of the Spirit, which is the Bible, which is the Word of God. I've got Pennsylvania Romans 1:16, sure goes along with that all familiar. For I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for the power of God for salvation, to everyone who believes, to you first, also with the Greek, and the Gauls. So we're ashamed of the gospel, he's going to be ashamed of us.
And I like history, but you're talking about, not retreating or whatever, falling back, our back is protected. Well, we're not really in it alone. So I got to think about, a lot of at this time period, the great armies that they had, Spartan army, the Romans, even the Greeks, armies, that they fought in phalanxes. And they were, shield to shield, they could cover each other. So they didn't, but usually when a big disaster happened, it was when they were falling back and retreating. It's when they were overtaken, then usually whatever army was annihilated. So I kind of thought about that because there's I don't remember which one it is, but where it is, 13 at the end, and when you've done everything, stand firm. So he's actually telling us not to give up and fall back. And like in the song, when your shields are, well, that was what I did. I drew all those different darts, as I call them, on the board, and then I drew their shield around it. I said, that's protecting you. If you're doing what you're supposed to, I said, you're not going to get a whole lot out of me for 30 minutes in Bible class. You got to be doing some on your own. And it's, talk with your parents, that kind of thing. And I told them, but when you do mess up, don't just give up. I was kind of picking on Eric more because he's already in high school, but I was telling him, if you call me at 3 a.m, not gonna be real happy getting up, but I'd rather you call me at 3 a.m. and come pick you up because you got poop stuff than for you to do something even stupider and try to drive or whatever else. And that's, you know, we're human, we're gonna mess up, and you are gonna get tricked sometimes and having, you know, accidentally get into something. But know that there are people that care for you, you know, try to help you back. Yeah, back to this song, we're just told to shake out the darks and keep moving and run right at them. And remember, God's on our side. And then the next verse I looked up was James 4:7. It says, submit therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Just telling the boys that, you know, the devil's smart. He's not really stupid like I always thought when I was younger. But he knows when he's not going to win. But he's kind of still a bully. He's not, you know, if you do stand up to him, he runs away. And he may wait for another day, but he's not going to stand there and fight a brick wall when you're standing firm. Any thoughts?
You know, I was thinking when you were talking about, I was thinking of PPE, personal protective equipment. And most of those things, hard hats, gloves, steel-toe boots, partial shields or whatever, that all came from something that happened. And, you know, we always said it was written in blood, you know, OSHA, because that's something that had happened to someone. So, you know, before it maybe have never happened, but that's kind of the way we are. It's then we used to guard ourselves with it because, you know, usually we faltered and we've done something in the past that, you know, that we shouldn't have. So hopefully we'll get the right protection and, you know, and use it.
You said that, and I think about, you know, Nicholas or Peggy, either one, they constantly forget to go feed the dog or the chickens or something. All right, I need something out of the car, Dad, can you go get it? No. It's your stuff, you go get it. That's your responsibility, you go get it. Well, can you go with me? Yeah, I'll go with you. They're not really, I mean, they're perfectly capable of going, but they need that, I guess, bigger person to go with them and kind of take care of them, which Peyton's faster than me now, but I'll try to outrun her back to the house or something, because she does not like being outside by herself in the car.
Look, it's a confidence booster too. Yes, I can do it. Yes, I can walk. Yes, I can go out there. But I still have that little bit of fear of an unknown. And until they mature, until we mature as adults in the Christian faith, to know the difference between good and evil, right and wrong, my conscience telling me about what I'm fixing to do, we all need that someone next to us, whether it be God that we're depending on fully, or whether we're depending on God, but we need that physical presence.
I think back to when I was, I guess, the third year apprentice, but I remember what I was asking, probably wearing my master plumber out that day, but I was doing something wasn't really used to doing, and wasn't real confident in what I was doing. I understood the gist of it, but I didn't want to mess it up too bad. I was asking something, just go do it. He said, there's nothing that you can't put together that if you mess up, I can take apart and fix it. I thought, I was pretty confident, I bet I could, but what he was really meaning was he's got enough experience doing it for 4 years that he's pretty confident that if I oops on something, that I'll figure it out. Or he'll be able to take it back, you know, figure out how to fix it, or it might not look as good, but he could do it. And when I was doing Canton, I was building this big old mixing valve, and it's bigger than this table, and it's huge. It took two of us to pick it up. And the diagram I had put a check valve in wrong. So when I'm firing up this expensive pain in the butt thing, I realized I've got a check valve in backwards and it's not gonna let water flow. And I was trying to get the helper to get it out, because he was a little bit thinner where it was at. And, I can't do it. So I'm not confident enough in to unsweat something and then flip it and we re-sweat it. So I figured out how I was gonna squeeze through these ceiling tiles in this spot and be burning right at my face level. And I got it out. And he'll see I couldn't have done that. Said I would have burned something up. So the point I guess I was trying to make is from something that I was scared to do initially, that the RMP told me that I could fix it. He could fix it if I messed it up. A few years later, I was confident enough to do something that I wouldn't have been before, but he was not confident enough to do it. So with a little bit of time, somebody kind of watching over your shoulder, you can go from milk to meat, I guess. So, any other thoughts?
I like the emphasis on stand. Excuse me. The battle has already been won, and of course, the spiritual description of this armor is equated to the non-optional. We have to wear it, and kind of equates to just faithful living each and every day, being prepared with God's word, growing in the spirit. But it comes down to, except for like the one said earlier, the sword of the spirit is the offensive. We are to go forward and to take hearts captive, not with weapons of the world, but with the sword of the spirit. But for us, we need to stand firm, and it helps us to remember that the battle has been won, and we'll continue to live faithful. We're just standing firm in His salvation.
That makes me think what Paul said, I fought the fight, I kept the faith, I finished the course. That's confidence.
It doesn't mean that we're always gonna have all the answers. It doesn't mean that we're going to know how to respond to someone with questions in every situation. But the backup deal is, I don't know, but we can find. We can look and see what God says, how to handle what you need to know. And that's what we do when you're in class with kids, especially with middle schoolers and teenagers, because they are very diligent about being able to pull you off the subject into something else. And everyone that's ever taught a class has either had it happen to them or they watched it happen with another teacher. But sometimes you can use what they're dishing out to bring it back to where it needs to go.
You ever see the river taught in the dog fights too? That's not just a kid.
Marshall, I learned a lesson last night. I'm sure you do all the time having teenagers. How you interact and how you react to some things sometimes with them. I had that, actually was up late washing dishes last night because I had to think about something I said and did to Isaiah. And I don't think I reacted in the proper way. And we can learn a lot sometimes from things like that. Especially in the moment of anger or aggravation. So we can always learn, even if we may be the older, more experienced than they are younger people. When you stop and think about it, did I handle that situation right? Pretty disappointing when you realize you have.
Sometimes I think they put us on a pedestal of sorts, kind of just because we are the parent, we mess up too. So it's a whole lot different going from Bailey to Peyton. It's even more different going from one of them to one of the boys.
That's what we gotta remember when we're even dealing with our children or dealing with other people. Everybody's an individual. Everybody has their own walk. You got to learn how to do it. I've raised 4 kids now, 2 grandkids. I've had to handle these 2 grandkids different than I did my first 4 children, because there's just a difference in them. It's just like with Alexis, she gets all upset And she can say some things that could set you off. And what I tell her, for mine, her best opinion is that, no, let's count to 10 when we go in front. And she has found out that this brings everything back into perspective. But we got to handle each person that we deal with. In Christ, if we take it forward, we got each person that you teach, you've got to handle them as an individual, not as they're a lost soul with a big group out here. They're an individual soul, because we all run this race individually, and along with God being our lead and our thought in heaven is our goal, that we run this race to finish. And it's to us to get this individual on that race and headed towards that goal. And if we start trying to lump kids and lump other people, groups, and trying to teach them, it just doesn't happen. There's an old training thing I went through says each one has to seek their own skill, their own level of the skill. And you got to teach them to dig in. You just can't throw it out there and say, now that's where it is. You just can't do it. You've got to live a life that shows them, but you got to understand they're going to have to go forth on their own with the help of the brethren of the church. You know, Joe talked about here a few weeks ago about our children having their own faith. You know, the point that our children live with our faith, because we encourage them to come to it. Somewhere they've got to create that faith, that run that they rely totally on. But they're all individuals, and they all get there at different times.
Another thing is the first group of children that we raise is a learning experience for us. Then when we get grandchildren or something like that, we take what we have learned from the first time and apply it this time instead of all the mess ups we did before. We still mess up, yes, but we've learned a few things back to forward. And so we're gonna raise that second group a little differently. It's just, I can remember when I had Stephanie, I had her for about 5 years. Her mother worked and I kept her. And there were a lot of things that I overlooked. There's a lot of things that she got by with, because by this time I knew that some of that stuff I tried on those other kids were just not that important.
One thing I've learned about teaching, and I think it's more from my own learning than anything else, is not to concentrate so much on teaching facts and rules as teaching principles. If you understand why the rule is there, first of all, you're going to be more inclined to follow it, because you can understand the consequences if you don't follow the rule. But it also, you don't have to really remember as much. If we remember that the principles that Jesus taught in his teachings on earth about just loving and caring for others and putting other people ahead of ourselves and things like that, we don't have to spend a lot of time on all these things we're supposed to avoid.
I think a lot of times we have to learn from your mistakes too, as you grow, just in general, and knowing your kids or your brothers or whoever you're dealing with. If I walk in here, he doesn't sock me in the arm or something, I'm gonna think he's mad at me. But Joe isn't gonna do that. Joe's gonna shake my hand and say, "How are you doing, brother?" It's two completely different personal. But Gary's done that since I was a little kid. I think he was even there when I was born. So that's just that's how you react and everything. But all right, would somebody read Exodus 14:14?
Marshall, did I say something before, verse 19? I don't know if anybody else has trouble with that, but I do, but I love that verse because, when he talks about, open your mouth boldly.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's hard for me to do, but that's really what we need to do. Yeah, I may talk to somebody about Christ, but, do I really do it in the vein where, it's seen and understood how I really feel about that, so. I think that's a problem a lot of folks, it's, whether we're introverts or extroverts or whatever, so. But, I really love that part, so it really helps me out.
What's it feel like boldness comes with confidence? That, if we're sure of something, and, that's what he's talking about, the whole armor of God, it's going to protect us. When we're assured of that, we stop thinking about, will this armor work? And I think about what the word is that God wants me to say. My biggest problem is sometimes not knowing when to shut up. Sometimes you want to fix every problem under the sun, and it's not. It may not be the place or time to deal with certain issues. That's hard.
Over in 15 after.
Yeah, Exodus 14:14 is the Lord will fight for you, and we shall hold your peace.
Try to sum it up real quick. The Lord's on our side, and He's going to fight for us. And I was thinking about, as I was doing this lesson, I actually didn't think I was going to have enough, then I got too much, which was awesome. But I was thinking about the bridegroom, the parable with the bridegroom and the lamps, and 5 of them were ready with oil and 5 of them wasn't. And sometimes you can stay ready all the time. Like I was talking about the shutdown, how much material we had. We still had to go get some stuff because stuff changes. And there was stuff that you can't do. They were wanting us to tear out one line, and it was welded stainless steel. I can't weld stainless steel. We don't even have the stuff, and it's not there. So that part was scrapped. We took from a point that we could and repaired that, and they were just, and that's just something they had to accept. But some of the other things that they wanted to add on, we just went and we looked at it. Okay, yeah, I can fix that. This is what I've got. This is what I can do, and they were fine with that. So sometimes in our journey, today it might not be the talk that he needed, might not be tomorrow, but a week from now that might be what he needed to hear, and that's when it changes. And that brings me to 1 Corinthians 16:13. Be on the alert, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong. I can remember from when I started hearing it, but my dad would always tell me, sometimes it sucks when you're a man. Thanks, Dad. That's not what I want to hear. I just want you to hear me gripe and complain and bellyache. But, the point he was trying to instill was, sometimes you're just going to have to do it. You don't want to take out the trash after dark and stuff. You still got to do it. Somebody's got to do it. So be a man and do it. And being, prepared and, with confidence as you get older. I'm not scared of the dark anymore. I mean, there was a time I was, I'm sure, but I'm not scared to go out after dark. I want to have a flashlight so I can see where I'm going. Because the last time I went outside in the dark without a flashlight, I stepped over a copperhead. And I remembered there wasn't a stick there when I walked out in daylight, so I got a flashlight to show. But, as you gain more confidence, but confidence is only going to come through experience. Repairing that check valve, the R&B I used to work for, he heard a pump running backwards, and that was the problem with the water system we put in. A pump was in reverse. They'd had like 5 plumbers there with their helpers tracing lines and looking for all kinds of problems. And he walks in and goes, your pump's on backwards. He could hear the water, the way it was moving. And they just went and flipped the switch and it was right. That's 40 years and a whole lot of experience to be able to do that. But he had, a bunch of other guys there that couldn't figure out the problem. But now, if I ever go to a system like that and it's something messed up, I'm gonna look for the pump. And that's learning. So, kind of summarizing the last couple minutes, I got compiled a few points. Our armor has to be worn right and taken care of and maintained. Like I said, you can't just leave it in a corner. And I was watching a documentary once, and you're not by yourself like on the battlefield. There's a group of them. They're all changing parts and working on their chainmail and all that stuff. So if you're by yourself, there's probably a problem there. You need to find out where you're at and get back to where you need to be at with your brothers and sisters. And another thing I forgot to mention was somewhere in the lesson that I started last night, I started thinking about the song, "The Battle Belongs to the Lord." And I'm not singing that one either for y'all, but we've already won. We already know who's going to win. It's kind of like being a fair weather fan. Love my brother to death, but whoever wins the Super Bowl that year is who he's going to start rooting for next year. And I'm always a Cowboys fan, but you already know who wins. You just stay on that side. We already know the end, so we're gonna be with that side.
Marshall, my favorite line of that song is when the enemy presses in, do not fear, the battle belongs to the Lord. Because we have no worries, really.
God will fight for us and with us. We have to stay prepared. And when the devil is after us, all we have to do is stand firm. That's kind of the general synopsis of the points for this lesson as a whole.
God is for us, who's against us? On day 31.
So again,
God is for us, who's against us?
yeah.
Give me all you say, the whole world against you. But get on your side, it doesn't matter.
Can't remember where I read it, but if you're right, even if you're alone, stand up. As long as you know you're right, even if you're by yourself, stand firm.
Down to the ring.
I think it doesn't matter what age we are, if we're teaching younger ones, if we're being taught in a class like this. We're always learning every day with the things that we have, and that's the way it should be with the Bible. Sometimes, a lot of people, I know what to do, I know the Bible or whatever, and then they don't attend church. You still have to grow every day. It doesn't matter if you're a new Christian or if you're an old Christian or if you're 5 or if you're 105. God's still teaching you every day to help you be prepared for that fight every day. And sometimes that's the part as a parent, we kind of make it sound where we do know it all, when we really don't know it all, and we have to tell our kids we don't know it all. But that's the purpose, that's kind of the point of us coming and learning and studying and stuff. It doesn't matter. Because sometimes we do think we know it all, and we don't need this anymore. We do.
I was helping her with math homework the other night, and I'm reading this stuff, and it's talking about dilation of some, I don't know, rectangle or something, and I'm looking it up on Google, I'm thinking, last thing I had dilated was my eyes. I don't know how that pertains to math, but I don't understand this, babe. I don't remember doing this. And she goes, but I need help. I have a friend that can, well, this is what so-and-so got, and I'm looking at it, and I'm playing with numbers and stuff, and I said, this is what I'm figuring. I don't know how she figured that. I can't figure out how she got that number. This is how I did it and what I would say. So she's trying to write all this down and turn it in, and she got in the car the next day. She goes, hey, you were right. I don't know how I did it or what it meant, But I was right, and, we were kind of laughing about it, but sometimes you can kind of bluff a little bit. But in this, I just did everything I knew until I figured out how I could get that, and it still wasn't the answer her friend got. So, well, if you don't want my help, go somewhere else, but that's how I'm figuring it. But I was right. So, I try to be honest. If I don't know, I don't know, but, when they ask me a question or something, I use Todd had a great line, I'll get back with you. And diffuse the situation, you moved on, and usually it might be a couple weeks later, you come in and he, by the way, I remember it here.
He even says that at the bank. I'll be back with you.
So, I always, that was a very good line. I'd ask him some doozies when I was a teenager in that class. That's what he said, I'll get back with you.
Oh.